The G7 countries have committed to imposing stricter sanctions on Russia in response to its ongoing aggression against Ukraine.
Russia remains the sole obstacle to just and lasting peace. The G7 confirms its commitment to imposing severe costs on Russia through sanctions, export controls and other effective measures. We stand united with Ukraine. From a statement on the G7 website.
Specific measures were not detailed, but in late October, the United States proposed that G7 allies consider sanctions on Russian exports of palladium, a critical component in automotive chips, and titanium, which is essential for industries ranging from aerospace to medical implants. However, Europe's dependence on Russian metals complicates these efforts, Bloomberg reports.
Russia's Norilsk nickel accounts for about 40% of global palladium production, making it difficult to quickly replace this market share. For the European Union, supplies of both metals from Russia are crucial, particularly titanium, which is indispensable for aviation. Sanctions on titanium would be a decisive response to Putin's recent proposal. In September, he urged his government to consider limiting exports of key commodities such as nickel, titanium and uranium, from the Bloomberg publication.
In October 2024, G7 finance ministers acknowledged violations of the price cap on Russian oil. The cap, set at $60 per barrel by the G7, the European Union and Australia in December 2022, has been breached by certain nations, purchasing Russian crude at higher prices. Russia uses outdated or faulty tankers from its so-called shadow fleet to transport this oil. Both the G7 and the EU have pledged to close these loopholes, with additional measures expected in the EU's upcoming 15th sanctions package.
We anticipate greater pressure through energy-related sanctions, particularly addressing Russia's use of its shadow fleet of oil tankers. Expanding sanctions to target these tankers would not only disrupt Russia's revenue, but also mitigate significant environmental risk.
EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Joseph Borrell stated that the next round of sanctions will focus on combating circumventions of existing measures. Alongside individual sanctions, the 15th EU sanctions package may include restrictions on Russian liquefied natural gas exports. While Russian LNG shipment to EU ports are currently banned, its import is not.
The European Union remains a key importer of Russian liquefied natural gas. We believe the European market is capable of entirely replacing Russian gas, and we anticipate enough political will and resources to make a decisive move and end dependence on Russian LNG.
The United States has already imposed sanctions on Russian liquefied natural gas exports. In November 2022, restrictions on the Arctic LNG-2 project forced the suspension of its operations. However, the US has not blacklisted other Russian LNG plants, such as Novatek Yamal LNG and Gazprom's Portovaya LNG. According to Bloomberg, sanctions on these facilities would reduce Kremlin revenues, but could also trigger higher global energy prices. Reported by Bastun Katerina Valeria Nikipelova, UATV News.